Hi everybody, my name's Sam, and I'm going to be talking about how we use AI at PepsiCo to deliver consumer smiles. Just a bit about me to begin with. I'm, as we just said, senior manager in the advanced analytics team in Europe. We're a team of about 50, and we have expertise in everything data, so data science, data engineering, data visualization, and my role is like a translation role. So I work with the retailers and the market units to deliver AI products and solve challenges, which I'll come on to. So it brings me to Wotsits. So imagine the scene, you're hungry, you go into your local store, you look at the shelf, you say, wow, they've got Wotsits, this is my favorite snack. Pick it up, have a bite, oh, it's delicious. You might think that's quite lucky, maybe there's some luck involved in that, and maybe there is. But what I want to talk to you about is how AI touches the journey of that product as it arrives with you, from when it's manufactured all the way through to when you have that smile. And I'm using the example of Wotsits, but of course PepsiCo has a wide array of household names, ranging from obviously Pepsi, 7-Up, Mountain Dew, things like Walker's, Doritos, Tropicana, Quaker. All of these things I'm going to talk about apply equally to these other products as well. So before we get into the actual AI and the details of kind of what the modeling does, let's talk about some enablers, some foundations, some fundamentals. So to enable our AI capabilities, we first need some really strong data foundations. You can't do anything unless you've got really good data. We've got two main data assets that we use across Europe to work with. The first is consumer DNA, or cDNA, and that covers everything we know about our consumers. So we build a huge data set of things that we know about consumers. So this might be things like their interest or attitudes, where they shop, what kind of things they buy, how old they are, what their media behavior is, and where they live. And then paired with that, we have a second data foundation, data asset called store DNA or sDNA. And this is all about the things that, everything we know about a store, every single store. And this will include supermarkets, hypermarkets. It'll also include convenience stores, so traditional trade kind of stores. And in some cases, in some markets, it'll also include things like restaurants, bars, cafes, that kind of thing. So in store DNA, we have lots of data around sales. So that's kind of often our internal sales data. It might also be external sales data that we get. We've got things around socio-demographics. We've got footfall, so we know who's walking near a store. We know things about points of interest. We know basically everything we know about a store. The one which I want to mention is in-store execution. So we know about what we do in the store as well from our own internal data. That includes things like image recognition data, which I'll come on to later because that's going to be important when we talk about some of the models. Basically, with all of this, we know a lot about the consumer, a lot about the store, and we can put them together and we can say which consumers go to which store, and we can build a really rich picture of everything that's going on in and around the store. And this is really important for building models on top of, so I wanted to start with that. Maybe to illustrate store DNA, let's just show this example. It's an example of a convenience store in Romania. It's just a small example of a few of the features that we have in sDNA. So we get point of interest data. You can see there's loads of things there. We get loads of things around socio-demographics. These are kind of two feature sets that I'm illustrating here, but as I said, there are loads of others. So they're essentially in both of these two data assets, we've got hundreds of data features. For store DNA, we're covering over a million points of sale across Europe, across all the different countries across Europe. So obviously some markets are a bit more data rich than others, but the ambition of the team is to have the kind of standardized data set across all of Europe. Okay, so that kind of sets us up. Let's talk about some of the AI use cases. Before I do, I'll just caveat that I'm not going to talk about anything to do with pricing, promotions, or marketing, because those are handled by separate teams, but they've got kind of extensive capabilities as well. So the kind of first question we want to answer, or we do answer using AI, is where should we focus our resources? PepsiCo is obviously a huge organization. We've got a lot of people on the ground. We've got a lot of resources that we can help to drive sales, drive growth, drive consumer smiles. I wanted just to show a couple of examples that we're using here for figuring out where we should direct our attention. So the first is around prioritizing store support. So we have models here that we build which identify unique sales potential of stores. So we look at things like how the store has performed in the past. We can then compare it against other stores using SDNA with similar characteristics. So we know, for example, a store in a central city location with high footfall, with a population who are kind of middle-aged or near a school, all these things. We can use all of that data to say, what would we expect a store to be able to sell? And then using that, we can see stores which are kind of underperforming, stores which are already overperforming, and we can adjust our go-to-market strategy accordingly. So what that could mean in practice, for example, let's take convenience stores as an example. If you walk into a convenience store, sometimes you'll see like a Pepsi fridge. How do we decide where we put those? We use models to identify unique sales potential within a store, and then we direct assets accordingly. It might also be to do with field visit frequency. So as I said, we've got a big field team. So when should they visit? How often should they visit a store? Should they actually not visit at all? Would it be better to call the store? We can help define the go-to-market strategy for a store based on these models. I'll talk more about assortment, so what products are in stores in a moment, because that's another ball game. But this first part is about figuring out where we should go, where we should focus our energy, making sure we kind of support store owners or retailers with our kind of execution clout, if you like. Okay. The second example here is white space targeting. So white space, essentially, what I'm referring to there are stores which currently don't sell PepsiCo products, so they're prospective customers, really. We can build models to identify, we can use AI to identify where those stores are and then build models to prioritize our field force to go out and try and convert them. Taking the example of Wotsits again, we know an area where that kind of product might sell well. We know in that area stores that we don't currently sell that product, so we can then target our people to go and to visit them. The way that we do that is we first build a store universe, so a big list of stores in a given location in a given country. We do that through predominantly external data sources, so we scrape data. The location, the country that we are talking about will depend on the sources that we would scrape, but essentially we end up with a big list of potential customers or stores in a market. We then use kind of AI joining methods to join that to our internal customer list. So if we've got a big list of customers potentially in a market, we then join it to our customers. We find the ones which don't currently sell PepsiCo products, and then we apply a similar methodology to the first part, which is we identify unique sales potential of those white space stores using, as I said before, both SDNA and CDNA, consumer DNA features. So we can basically predict where PepsiCo products will sell well, where they're currently not selling. And then we can carry out initiatives to go and turn those those stores into customers. So that would be sending people out to go and visit them, calling them up. We can do that on an ongoing basis. So if a new store opens, we know we want to be kind of ahead of the game. We want to be the first one in there. But equally, if it's been open for a long time, we need to sort of prioritize our energy and say, this is one which we think has really got a lot of good prospect, a good potential. So there's a couple of examples about how we use AI to find basically where to go and kind of tailor our execution. I'm now going to talk more about actually what we would do in store. So I guess this is the more important bit, and this is the bit about when we come back more around to the Wotsits theme. So there's kind of two parts to this that I want to talk about. The first is retailer collaboration. So we want to make sure we're putting the right products in the right stores. We've got a big product range. There's a limited space in a store. How do we make sure we got the right products in the right stores? In terms of retailer collaboration, we work with some of the largest retailers across Europe in kind of organized trades, sort of supermarkets, hypermarket space. We've got really deep category expertise. Snacks and beverages, they're the things that we do. We know all about them. We've got really good analytics capability, and we've got the sales force to help kind of implement the outcomes from our models. So that's this kind of starting base that we're working with. The way that we then go on to actually do this is twofold, two examples here. The first is planogram optimization. So the question we're trying to answer here is which products should be in each store, what proportion should they be, and on which shelf should they be. And this is where I'm going to come back to the image recognition example. So our field team, when they walk into a store, they have got a series of things that they do in the store. Some of them are related to kind of in-store actions. Some of them are related to collecting data. Some of them are relating to working with the retailer directly or the store owner. One of the things that they do is they take images of the shelves. We then we take that data, we convert those images into tables of data, which tell us where a product is on a shelf and in what proportion it is on the shelf. We've built up quite a history now of this data. And using that, we're able to model, we're able to pair it with sales data and other data that we have in SDNA and CDNA in our data assets to model and forecast demand elasticity within products. So we know what products sell well in different places, on different shelves. We can essentially forecast what we would sell depending on different scenarios. And then using that, we can actually optimize the planogram. The entire shelf of a supermarket, we can say, it would be best if you had this product at this level with this many facings. So in the case of Wotsits, for example, you might say, this should go on, in a Tesco, this should go on a middle shelf, and it should have a full shelf worth of space. Whereas Doritos should be at eye level because that's a better seller, and it should have 2 shelves of space, for example. I'm making it up. The beauty of this is using the image recognition data. We're not just doing this for PepsiCo products. We're doing it for the entire category. So working with the retailer, we can say, look, this is how we would optimize the planogram. This is how we would recommend you lay out your planogram. You're going to review it. Let's try and figure out what we should do. This, in some cases, it will benefit PepsiCo products. In other cases, it might detract from PepsiCo products. But overall, the entire category and kind of all the retailers within that category will benefit. So we work with retailers on that. What we can then do, and this is the second part, is actually carry out smart, I've called them here, smart in-store actions. This basically means using AI to direct our sales force. So, and this is where the kind of micro decisions comes in, I guess. So as the field's rep enters the store, they'll receive actions on a tablet for precise actions in that store, tailored to that store. And we do that using that image recognition, plus combining it with the optimum planograms. So the way that we do it is we get the image that they've taken, we look at the current position in that store, we compare it to the optimum planogram that we've already built, and then we say, oh, this store has some discrepancies. It's a bit different from the optimum. And here's where it's different. So in the example I gave a minute ago, we might have said, oh, actually, Wotsits are on the bottom shelf. They probably shouldn't be on the bottom shelf. Let's move them to the middle shelf. And here's why. And the way that we do the why is we say, if you were to move it to the middle shelf, it would give us incremental revenue of X. And we were able to predict the quantity of the change, which then helps us to prioritize the actions. So when they walk into the store, they have, here's your top priority action. This is the biggest one you need to do, and this is the second, third. So then they kind of work through and down the list. The field rep will work with the store manager in most cases to say, hey, look, you're straying from the optimum planogram, the planogram that we've agreed with the retailer at head office level. You should probably change these things. And they say, oh, okay, great. I can see you've given me the benefit. They've got the kind of the image on their tablet to say, look, this is the benefit we would predict if you made this change. It gives them quite a compelling case to make some changes. And then we're able to sort of track performance of that as we go on. So we're able to see, did it actually work? Did the kind of sales increase for both the product in question, but also the category overall? Did the change stick? So did the store manager decide to actually put it back later? And if so, we can chat to them and say, why? I've talked a lot about kind of organized trade, so supermarkets. We can equally apply this capability to convenience stores as well, where you've got a bit more flexibility in terms of what you want to do on the shelf, and the store manager would typically have the final word on what happens in that store. Okay, and then the second part of this, and this is why I wanted to mention convenience. I think this applies perhaps more to convenience than to organized trade, so supermarkets. Digital ordering tools. So the example here is that a store owner would have an app, and they would use that app for ordering products. And behind the scenes, we have models that we run on a daily basis, and we push the outputs of those models to the app, to the store owner, again, using our kind of data assets, using historic sales, using other outputs from other models, including customer segmentation and clustering models. And we hide all that complexity from the store owner. We make it really easy for them to use. The app is kind of really straightforward. We want them to have a seamless selling journey as possible. So there's a couple of examples of how that might actually play out in a store. So first is what I've called here recommended products. So essentially, we want to say to a store owner, hey, look, you don't currently have Wotsits in your store. We know they're going to sell well because we know the kind of consumers in your area. We know that you're near a school. We know there are families. We know all these kind of things. We see in stores similar to yours that Wotsits sell really well. So let's recommend them to you. And we give the store owner a have you considered this item kind of interface to say, let's recommend some products. And then they can say, yep, great. In my next order, I'm going to try Wotsits. Let's try that out. Let's see how it goes. And so we can gradually support them in driving their sales and meeting the needs of their consumers, meeting what do they actually want in the store. The second, and it sounds simpler, but I think it's equally as important, is about auto basket population. So store owners will typically, in convenience stores, will typically order on a regular cadence. So maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, something like that. That process could be quite actually arduous because there's so many products that they want to order. We've got a big portfolio. Previously, what they did is they kind of went down the list and they clicked, yep, one of those, one of those, one of those. What we've done now is we've used our data that we have to build models to basically predict what they're going to buy in the next order. So we use past purchases, we use seasonality, time of month, time of year. We use all the other things around kind of similarity to other stores, so what we see in other stores that are similar to yours. And then we auto-populate the basket for them. So then all they have to do is they have to go down the list and say, yeah, this is great, go. Or they have to say, oh, well, let's remove that one. Maybe I want to add this other product. What we then do is we track the additions and removals from the basket. So if they add a product or remove a product, and we feed those back into the model and constantly improve the predictions and do this on a kind of ongoing basis. Integrate this into the end-to-end digital selling process. So to summarize this slide, we use our category expertise, we push initiatives all the way through to the sales force, and we collaborate and help retailers and store owners with our execution muscles, so our field team. And that helps us to put the right products in the right store, which means that when you walk into that store and you buy that bag of Wotsits, it's not by chance. It has ended up there because of various interventions or artificial intelligence touch points. Okay, so some takeaways. So I think the key one, I think, to be honest, probably is getting the data right. So we put a lot of effort, a lot of time and energy into getting these data foundations right, getting the right sorts of data and having it in the right sort of structure to help drive those the data science capability that we have. To actually make a big impact, we have had to automate, embed, and scale this. So across Europe, applying these things. I think the embed is the key one here. That's where some of the challenges come. It's actually about change management. It's about working with markets, with retailers, with kind of all the right people to make sure we can actually implement these things in a practical way and make it really simple. And that allows us to apply these targeted micro decisions at a store and SKU level often. And I guess the final one really is just to create smiles. That's what we're here to do, right? We want to make sure we put in the right thing in the right place so that the consumers are happy, because that builds the brand, that builds the sales. And I think next time you're enjoying a bag of Wotsits, if you do like them, then in part you can thank AI for that smile that's on your face. So thank you very much.